Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this, research in action. We are going to start right now. And firstly, I'm going to introduce our professor here. We have Luis Felipe Jaramillo Calderón. He is a professor and researcher from Universidad Tecnológica de Pereira. He holds a master's degree in bilingual education from the same university. He is a member of the Polyglosia Research Group. In the program, he normally guides courses like Anglophone culture, teaching practicum, e-learning, or sociolinguistics. His research interests are bilingual education, language assessment, emerging technologies in education, and literacy development. Today, he is going to present us his research about social history and critical interculturality in an Anglophone culture course, a transformative pedagogical experience.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Just a clarification. Even though I hope this day becomes a normal research process, for now, I'm just sharing a pedagogical experience, okay? With you, experience of a challenge that I had to tackle a couple semesters ago, and is to teach this course called Anglophone Culture, and like the decisions that I made to transform the course. So this is the idea. Thank you very much for being here. So sorry things to people I recognize audience. Right? Let's start. This is a program of the ELT teachers like training program, and part of the rationale why the course is there in the first place, because we see historically that language are connected, intertwined, and then learn languages isolated, but then we should also take into account the cultures where those languages come from. And in a way, you may view or see a teacher, not only a language teacher, but some sort of being perceived as sort of cultural ambassadors of the languages that they are teaching, which is something that I call into question, because in a way, sometimes it is in an approach when you focus so much on these main cultures, what we know as the inner circle cultures of English-speaking countries like the US or England, in this regarding other English-speaking countries, and to start with the reason why they speak English in the first place. So normally, when we teach culture in the classrooms, we tend to do it in a very superficial and congratulatory way. It means like focusing on the nice part of it, perhaps because we want to solve issues, we want to avoid conflict in the classroom, we want to always bring the positive up. So we focus on traditions, we focus on symbols, we focus on maybe nice music and movies and stuff, the visible thing, but that gives us partial understanding and actually a misleading understanding of culture, which is that something that is nice, always positive and static, change, and doesn't involve a lot of people in conflict with each other. So the idea with this course was actually to problematize a little bit both culture and history, because this course also has an important historical component, and not limit ourselves just to learning about important events and perhaps important people, and to learn the fairs and the feasts and the food and the fashion, the food for F's, but actually we'll look at it in a more critical way. So I want to call into the question those divisions that Walsh has done of interculturality, in which it may first serve three functions. Relational one, the relational one, it means like that interaction between people from different cultures, but also a more functional one, that is one that makes people behave in convenient ways, sometimes in certain and even in unfair situations of power, or that more one that tries to actually address cultures, or even will and actually exert certain criticism in necessary cultures, but not only the cultures as if you were superior, as if your culture were superior, but actually as an attempt to better understand your idea here. So in this way, when I was asked to guide this course, I asked myself a question. That is, what do Colombian, that's an important thing, language teachers in development need to know about speaking histories? And in doing so, like maybe also know more about themselves. And to answer the questions, I borrowed from frameworks that are of critical pedagogies and critical interculturality and the colonial or anti-colonial pedagogies that would not simply promote a course like perhaps from an official point of view, from let's say for students of the given language, but for students of a different language, which meant very often had complicated relationships in history with the target cultures. So in doing so, we view language development also as a possibility of developing criticality about the word as a way of naming categories that can help us understand better the word and problematize it. And because if we don't know what certain categories means, like for example, and what they really imply, for example, those of racism or injustice or inequalities or any others forms of injustice, and also those that possibilities, it is very difficult for students to actively engage. And in doing so, what you aim for is that your students become agents of change and that they develop certain practices that are or promote more just relationships between not let's say from a more point of view. So in Edinburgh also that Cali, Valsh and Granada, who I saw earlier in a presentation, was falling for, and also Gomez, but it implies talking about good stuff, about stuff normally try in the class, about politics, about injustices, about sexism and victims of racism, the victims of racism, about slavery, talking about segregation, talking about this stuff that maybe sometimes uncomfortable, may create certain sort of discussions in the classroom. That is what you look for. You look for people to actually want to give their opinions, their preset beliefs, like in this exercise. And so it is an attempt to learn about the culture, especially the culture of colonial countries like those of or USA and Britain, from a decolonial and anti-colonial point of view. Like the actual consequences of colonialism in history, what it meant for the Philippines, for example, colonized by the Spanish, later by the US, or what it meant for India, for example, to be part of the colonial England period, etc. And in so, like taking a stand that does not congratulate, that doesn't see this as a neutral aspect, but actually as a matter of oppression and taking a stance against that oppression. So, for the pedagogical intervention, were many things that I took into account. Time, I am only to highlight three of them, like the relevance that I wanted to bring to the course so that students engage about it, resource and the assessment procedures. Regarding to design for in Colombian language, so one of the things was to select themes from English history, especially in this case, US history, but also other countries, and connect them to Colombian and American history whenever possible. Another thing that I did was to take an approach to history that is called bottom-up history or social history. That is not the history of kings necessarily, the history of presidents and key figures that shows kind of a biased view of history or a reductionist view of history of that being made by the leaders, but actually that focuses on the focusing on women, focusing on workers, focusing on Black people during their struggles or during slavery period, etc. So focusing on their lives and their struggles. And in doing so, the idea was to foster historical thinking, but also critical intercultural awareness in students. Historical thinking, understanding history not necessarily as a set of events, but as a rather processes, understanding that have to make decisions. We talk about history, but those decisions give us ideas of the ideological choices that people do. So when you decide to talk about something and not something else, you're an ideal decision. But the thing is, who's benefiting from that ideological decision that you are making there? Obviously, it is very important to acknowledge those biases. So I, in no moment, tell students that I'm presenting a completely objective point of view through history, because that is, first of all, impossible. Second of all, that would be lying. So I encourage them to bring also their positions, and we can have a shared discussion about their the different contents of the class. Obviously, as they may bring their arguments as well. And to do so, the material that were decided, well, there was a main source that really supported the content, and it's one of people the United States by Howard Zinn, an example of social history. And that is to tell history of the United States from non-official view, that is one that actually acknowledges the people that had to suffer or endure. And obviously, later it involves the rest of the world, with the Philippines, or with, for example, Cuba, Puerto Rico, or the Europe during World Wars, etc. So we get to actually to talk about the world several times through the book. But it was also complemented by a young people, a young. Do you hear me? Do you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
No, I
Okay.
can hear you.
So
Yeah, at some points
what-
it's like cutting off, but go ahead.
Oh my God! If you want, I can slow down. I will try to slow down.
No, it's
So,
okay. It's okay.
Okay, thank you. But obviously, even though I acknowledge reading as an important source of to raise awareness and to form your own thinking about stuff, I understand that there are other modalities. So, for example, we had a cine forum called Cinebites, and the idea was to bring movies in extracurricular spaces related to the course. So we brought movies like 12 Years a Slave, like All Quiet on the Western Front, like or like well, like movies that have a social message about maybe, or like suffragette, for example, that give us an idea of the lives of the Black people during certain movements, or women when they were fighting for their civil rights, or like the actual like social side of war that is not the congratulatory, or actually like type of movie that show us heroes, but actually how harsh those wars were. And finally, the assessment procedure. So because I believe that the way you assess gives a lot of the views that you have about learning, about teaching, and about like what is valued when students. So normally history is kind of assessed through questionnaires or memory-based, but I break down not because I think the memory is very important. I believe that is an important of building criticality, but I wanted to assess in a different way. So I had three procedures. an interview, a group interview, which is questions were not about dates, not about specific events, but for them to give their or their opinions about difficult situations that we had experienced in class, and talk among themselves. We had a cultural in which they had to select an from hopefully like sales or they found interesting and to promote the radio growth or in a stand. I will tell you more about that later. And finally, research, a small research project of cultural issue. I understand or identify issue nowadays that may be better understood by exploring the history behind that, like giving them also more agency in the process, not me, the one that decides all the readings and all the learning subjects. So since we have like 4 minutes, so far, we'll move to the some impacts that I've identified. Remember, this is not a research. Sorry about that slide. See there, I am actually trying to move it. The research is about. Sorry. It's not a research, but I did have a survey that I handed the students by the end of the also their ideas. I first of all that approaching study from a social point of view, from a board point of view, would imply that they were more emotionally engaged and more cognitively engaged in the process. They were more motivated to participate. They could relate, even in some cases, to some of the stories that we learned. And students would say that I love much focus on the consequences faced by the indigenous communities, such as peace, or some topic awaken something in that is to empathize with past and present events. Right? So the fact that some of the assessments, like for example, the stand made them involved in the process of doing the research and becoming expert about the author and promoting, actually inviting them to audience to see the stands. Normally, those activities are outside the classroom in institutional events. And the cultural inquiries, students came up with ideas that they would explore. Like, for example, that of mass shootings, or for example, fast fashion, or human trafficking, or well, or any other issue from other parts of the world. And they came up with very interesting projects. This is a journal, let's say, an informal journal that we are going to publish soon in the from the course, so that the students in the future can see what the partners did. And well, this is just the start. Every course I reflect and bring things new, change some things, but this is like the goal, the social goal of the course, to promote criticality, to engage, to better understand like the world we are in, and so that we can better exercise our agency, transformative agency in the process, and so like position students and future teachers as agents of change. To conclude, one student also said, the course exceeded my expectations in terms of content comprehension. Not only did I fully understand the part, I also helped me see from a different perspective and become aware of its importance in our daily and academic lives. These are some of the references. As I told you, I'm very inspired by Freire, Marc Claren, also Diaz, Valls, Granados Beltran. I don't see why Idris and Trujillo, okay, in the process. So, and Howard Sin, the author of the book that I mentioned, in the formulation of this course. So thank you very much. That is what I wanted to share.
Thank you very much, Luis Felipe Jaramillo, for that insightful and thought-provoking presentation. We truly appreciate the depth of your research and the clarity with which you have shared your findings. Now we will open the floor to questions. If you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand or indicate it in the chat.
Oh my, the author Otro.
Yeah. All right. First, we have Dr. Carlos Granados.
Hello, Luis Felipe. Good to see
Hello,
you here.
Professor.
I think
Thank you very much.
we have coincided in other spaces, I guess.
Uh-huh.
I have a question. Well, I did something similar based on what you did. Was there any resistance on the part of students? I ask because in when I did that in my classes, there were some resistance, for example, when I was talking about gender or sometimes about race, because those are controversial topics, right? So I saw, well, in the data that you showed that students were like very receptive, but we don't know if all of them. So did you get any resistance from them?
I think I have, but fortunately, it hasn't been very much. And what I do very early at the beginning, for example, I had this semester a student that said, "Teacher, please try not to be so bad." Said, I I cannot, but what I can assure is that here is a space for everyone to share, right? So I told you, tell everyone in this class that even though I share a position, I am honest in the positions that I have, it doesn't mean that you have other positions. Since you build, I start building from very early in the process, like they see, like from his like historical accounts, like how they and the origins of, for example, sexism. Like for example, there is a beautiful chapter from Howard Zinn about sexism, chapter 5, and talks, for example, about Advice to a Daughter, a book that told the women horrible things of how they should behave back then. Those kind of exaggeration when people have demands in the present, or watching people movies like suffragette, so it really resonates with them. But again, it is one directional narrative. If students want to share, the idea is to debate, and them that is the purpose of debate ideas. That is how we build knowledge, and through that stand, there is not so much um, resistance, and the students are mostly engaged in the discussions.
Okay.
The paper, there is a question, the chart.
Yeah, I want to read it. So it says, how do you think this type of culture pedagogy approach can influence not only one understanding of other cultures, but also our practices and attitudes towards them?
Well, I think that being informed is very important. Normally, we see cultures as something static, something that is not necessarily controversial, that have like all cultures have conflicts, all cultures have instances of injustice, and I think being informed and being also about those give us an account like of and raises some empathy, because I don't only say, for example, the instances in which certain countries were invaded, but also the resistance that those countries, the invader countries, had in their countries, right? So all the people that were against that, all the people that have always been critical of those policies. So I think it actually promotes empathy towards the people from other cultures in a uh, view, not empirical, an informative, say. In the paper, I share the memories to the if see if everything goes all right with the memory of the experience.
Okay, thank you very much for all of your answers, your time, and for sharing this amazing presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, to you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, finally, I want to invite all the audience to register their attendance in the link that is in the chat.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Teacher, I couldn't understand what he said about the paper. Could you?
Yes. He has to write like some memories that Unica is going to have. So if you want, maybe you can ask to the Professor Doralba, I would say, for that. All right?
Right. Thank you.
All right. In some minutes, we will continue with the next presentation. Yes, I need to record it. Sorry. Okay.
worry.
When I continue here. So her academic interests focus on socio-emotional learning as a means to improve classroom environments and foster student development. Currently residing in Mosquera, Colombia, she continues working on strategies to promote emotional intelligence and holistic growth in education. Thank you. It's a pleasure for us to have you here. So you can start your presentation, and remember that we will have 20 minutes and 10 minutes for questions. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Okay, thank you. So, in advice, I'm going to apologize if maybe I cough during the presentation, but it's because I got the flu, a very very bad flu. But we are here for the research in action. So my research project is self-care strategies in English classes for sixth graders, strengthening executive function skills at Institución Educativa La Armonía. The introduction for this research is usually in Colombia, we see that we have a violent background. So this has been seen throughout history. In every single like part of history, we are able to see that we have wars or we have like violence in any kind of sense. So, especially in schools, I wanted to avoid this because when I decided to choose this topic, they were on the news that children were fighting a lot with other children, even like the students with teachers, teacher with student, the parents from the students with the teachers. So it was like a very chaotic situation, and it was much more focused on Bogota and Mosquera. So from here, I decided that if we have and if we are able to do something, we can, like place your hand there. So I decided that in all public schools, we are able to get, like a second chance in order to teach them how they can regulate their emotions, how this can help besides, like the academic purpose, but also help them in the daily life. So for example, during the traffic, you usually can see a lot of violence, like during the like people usually fight a lot. They're living on a constant mood of not being like happy or calm or knowing how to like regulate those emotions. So I was aiming to help with those situations, and this is when this whole research started. So the problem statement is that children usually they fight a lot in the classroom, especially in this case. I chose La Armonía School, which is a school located in Mosquera, Cundinamarca. It is yeah, like a public school, and I worked with children starting in fifth grade, and then we move on to sixth grade. Why I decide to do this? Because if they are like in earlier graders, it's not going to be easy to teach them how to regulate them, and according to studies, is not that like the impact is not that positive if we teach them how to regulate themselves when they are in an early age, because still at that stage they need to be able to like express what they're feeling at the moment. They're still learning, they're still showing emotion, and if we like place like a blocker there, it might be harmful when they are adults. So the perfect population that I found was between fifth and sixth grade. This has another reason, which I will explain a little bit later on. But yeah, this is like the general issue about talking about emotions in the classroom. And the reason why this is like between fifth and sixth grade is because of the transition that is there. So what happens is I made a triangulation in order to identify the issue. So I'd worked with 35 students and with the counselor and the head teacher. And the counselor told me that this transition between primary to secondary school usually is very harmful and very hard for students. And if you are able to see or if you have heard experiences of people being in sixth grades, That grade is where most of the students fail their academic year, but it is because of that they are getting used to new things. In fifth grade, usually they have only like one or two teachers at most, but then in sixth grades they're going to have more, and that can lead to a difficult issue because they were used to be like the bigger the biggest on primary, and now they're going to be the smallest on secondary school. So it's like a big change or a big update. And this is like what about the problem statement relies on. Also, I find out that in English class, specifically in English class, it was difficult for them to be able to show what they were learning somehow. But it was not because they didn't know, but because they didn't have the confidence or like they didn't feel safe in that environment in order to show up what they were learning. So that was the pillars of why I decided in this topic and why to do it in sixth grade and why in English classes. So the research question that I got, the first one is how might the implementation of self-care strategies in the English class influence the regulation of emotions in sixth grade children from La Armonía School. This is like the main topic and what I was looking the most to find a reason. And when I talk about self-care strategies, I know there might be a lot of things on your mind right now. But in this case and for this research, the self-care strategies were mostly two. The first one is a mood meter, and the second one was the mindfulness implementation. And according to those two, we were also like learning vocabulary in English about emotions. So it was like a three steps in order to get the self-care strategies going on. And the sub question I have, how can the implementation of self care strategies support the development of executive function skills? Since there are 7 executive function skills, I decided to choose only 2. So the first one is emotional regulation and self regulation during the English class. There is a difference between emotional regulation because it's more about, like how you manage what you feel, and self regulation is more about how you can handle situations in your life despite the emotion that you are living. So there are like two differences between this. Mm. I'm sorry. Now, the third question is the most related to education. Well, the last two were also related to education, but this one is more related to what like my bachelor is about, and is how might the implementation of self-care strategies influence oral skills in English classes in sixth grade children from La Armonía School. I wanted to prove that even though this like research project is about emotions, we are able to handle it or to work to make it work in an English class. So I decided to use the oral skill because this is one of the most important skills that we have in order to get communication with each other. How we can boost it up in order to use the self-care strategies to make it all work. Now, the research objectives, the first one is to analyze how the implementation of self-care strategies in English classes influence sixth graders, regulation of emotions, and in the specific objectives is to gather in-depth insights about how the implementation of self-care strategies strengthen executive functioning skills, again, such as self-regulation and emotional regulation during the English class, and finally, to identify trends in sixth grade students' oral skills in English classes at La Armonía School following the implementation of self-care strategies. Now, the theoretical framework, I had to use about 4 or 5 constructs, if I'm not wrong. But in each construct, we have some sub constructs. So it was like a lot of information in order to be able to shape where the research was going. So the first one is self-care strategies. I define what a self-care is, which is again when you are taking the reins of the way you feel and the way you interact with others. Then I have mindfulness and mood meter that, according to Sani Vapuro, the mindfulness cultivate well-being to focus on the here and now. And the mood meter, according to Fuentes 2022, is defined as a helpful practice not only for the teacher but for students as well. And Then we have executive function skills, which is the second construct. And inside this, we have the executive function, which is, like the abilities that we have in order to hold information in mind, such as working memory, in this case of self-regulation, emotional regulation. I needed as well to define what was emotional regulation and what was self-regulation, which was what I explained at the beginning. So yeah, it's how we can, like for example in self-regulation, how we can respond to demands of the environment, and then how we can use that in order to achieve what we want, so to achieve goals. Then we have emotional intelligence. Here I just define emotional intelligence as the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions. This is according to Garcia Willet 2022. And then we have social emotional learning, because we needed to use something about the educational field as well. So in this case, I had to define what is social emotional learning, we, which according to Baradi states that teachers play a key role in modeling emotional intelligence. And I will talk a little bit more further, like in the connection between the teacher and the student, and how we can work as a model in order to teach them how they can like manage themselves. Also, I define what is the term of English as a foreign language, and this was by Toprak Gildix 2022, and this is defined again as the language that is not the mother tongue, but and it is not spoken like regularly in the country. As well, we have a speaking skill, English as a foreign language, which according to Dueñas et al. 2015 is the most important skill again among all the four languages, because we are able to communicate well with this one. So this is pretty much the theoretical framework. Now, in the review of literature, I found more or less 40 studies that were like aligned to what I was looking for. Like two examples, or yeah, like models that I wanted to see if what has been done, and also how can I, with my research project, how can I fill up the gap that I was seeing. So the first one is the importance of the teacher as model to develop emotional intelligence in students. Here I am mentioning 5 studies. I remember that from Sarmiento and Castillo 2015, I'm sorry, 2019. And they were saying that the teacher is like, so the teacher has the main role in the classroom, because we are like mirrors for our students. So when they see that we are frustrated, that we don't know how to, I don't know how to have like a classroom management, or how to deal with frustration, how to deal maybe with some students, they are learning from us of the response that we are having with them. So it is very important to keep this in mind when we are teaching, because besides, we being the ones that know the topics, or that know how to handle the situation, they are looking at how are we responding emotionally to our students as well. And with that, they have like a second role, because usually, well, students spend most of their time in the school, even though sometimes more than in their own homes. So it's like a connection that we have to do in order to stand up and to make sure that we are doing the things right, and that we are the model that these students are following. This can be very good, but also it can go very wrong if you don't know how to manage your own emotions. So it is important to start from the root. So the teacher needs to know how to like regulate themselves in order to be able to expect from their students to have as well a good regulation. The second like theme or topic that I got from the literature review is the relevance of emotional regulation for La Armonía school students. So I was like, why is this important? Why is it important to have emotional regulation in the classroom if you are going there just to learn? So here there are a couple of authors that they talk about it, and they explain the reason why again it is important for students to have this good regulation in order to at the end have a good academic performance. Then we have emotional intelligence in EFL classes. This was a little bit difficult because I wasn't able to find information about schools in Colombia talking about emotional intelligence in EFL classes. Most of the research are made in English as a second language instead of English as a foreign language. So here is like where the gap begins to show. And then finally, I got self-care strategies to regulate the students' emotions. Here I found a couple of research as well, and I decided to divide them in two. So we have mindfulness and mood meter. In mindfulness, it was not easy to find a research that was talking about, mindfulness during English classes, but it was most between engineer classes, between like doctors, like doctors apprentices. So I didn't find the research specifically for students in sixth grade when they were implementing mindfulness. So here again, where the gap begins. And finally, we got the mood meter, where Sanchez Gomez and Entalo Renault from 2019, they talk about it, and as well Galofre Peñaranda and Gallardo Estrada 2021. The last one that I'm mentioning is the one that helped me the most because it showed me, or it inside me, that it was indeed possible to use the mood meter to create like awareness about self-care strategies and about emotional regulation in the class. And then I would combine that one with English so that we can create the whole environment working for this research and as well for the students, which is the most important. Now, the research methodology in the context, again, Institución Educativa La Armonía. The participants were sixth grader students, 23 males and 17 females. This is a qualitative research paradigm. It is an action research. I was looking to do like a change. So I wanted to see like a before and after. So that's why I did the diagnosis and then the outcome of that. The instruments were logbook. Children were taking like a folder at home, and they would fill out with the activities that we were done, observations, and finally the Mesquite test, which is what I implemented at the beginning and at the end. You might be wondering, what is the Mesquite test? That is that is a test that works with like it tests the emotional intelligence from children. So it places them in hypothetical situations in order to show up what they know about emotional intelligence and how would they react. So for example, there is one question that says like, you had a fight with your friend, what would you do? First, you go and I don't know, tell him you're sorry and that you want to be friends again. Second, you hide and you pretend that nothing happens. And third, you ask a friend to ask him what's going on. So it's like a hypothetical situation, and it worked pretty good in order to see like the differences. And finally, the data analysis is grounded theory. So I will show you a little bit more about it later on. Now, we did a total of 6 pedagogical interventions. This is like the example. So as I was mentioning, in the right side of the screen, you're looking at the Mesquite test. So it's like the way they were answering things. They had like options, the question and then options. And in the 6 pedagogical interventions, we had 6 different activities in order to come to the whole like address of emotional regulation. Each class lasted about an hour, 2 hours, depending on the availability that we had with the teacher. And what you see in the left side of the screen is the emotion meter we created with them. It was part of an activity, so they were able to draw and to express how each emotion was feeling for them. Here a lot of things came out like that I was not unexpected, such as teamwork and how self-care strategies can help as well with that part. What you can see like in the bottom, which is a folder that is like the example of how the folders worked. So some of them decided to use like drawings or like images from plays that they liked, and the other ones decided just to use like their own picture. And then you have a picture of me with the students in an activity of mindfulness. So in data analysis and interpretation, the first one, the first stage when you are talking about grounded theory is open coding. So what I did was to create an Excel sheet where you were able to place the like intervention number 1, intervention number 2, and so on. So what you can see here, and it's like a reflection of my mind because I wanted to see how it worked. So is that it's like buildings, like 6 buildings, and they're like like they are built with a lot of like briquettes in different colors. Each color represents one question. So the first question, like the main one, was in purple. Then the other one was in pink, and finally the one about English was in yellow, if I'm not wrong. So this was the first stage, data analysis and interpretation, open coding. Then we have actual coding, where I was just dividing inside the each intervention. We were able to have like their own color. So that's why it looked like the 6 buildings. They have their own like floor with the color. And then we finally had the stage number 3, which is concepts into categories. So at the end, we got 3 big buildings with all the information recollected from all the interventions, and like being able to categorize them in the research questions that I wanted to answer. So out of that information, we got a couple of like outcomes. So the first one is the impact of self-care strategies on emotional regulation, which means that it worked. So that's great. So the importance of emotional regulation, just as breathing and counting, it influenced on the students' emotions during English classes. I was able to see like a couple of examples inside the same interactions that we had with the students, and also the students' feedback on how they felt after self-care strategies. So they were able to say if they were calm, happy, relaxed, angry, like all the emotions that we were learning. Then we had self-regulation and executive functioning skills, where students were able to manage distractions and remain focused. They were able to develop teamwork and collaborative skills through activities, which was not planned, but it was an outcome of the research. And then the use of mindfulness or mantras to improve concentration. Then we have oral skills development. So we have that students' progress in English speaking was good. They were able to express how they felt. So basic English, because they didn't have like a good level of English. And something important to highlight here is that I chose this specific school is because they are going through a transition from to become a bilingual school. So students are still getting used to English because they are not that good at it yet. But if they just get the whole English information in one punch, they are going to feel frustrated because they are like lost. So in oral skills, we have as well challenges and tendencies in speaking tasks during class, and the influence of emotional well-being on oral participation in English, to be able to talk like in front of everyone in English, trying to calm themselves. Finally, we have behavioral changes and group dynamics, which was an unexpected again outcome. The changes in behavior before and after the self-care interventions, difficulties in group work, and the resolution through emotional intelligence activities. And here is something funny, because I found that there is a difference between working like only females and only males, like only girls and boys. They have issues working together at this stage. So it was interesting to see and to experience this. And the impact of self-care strategies on cooperative work and peer interactions. And now the findings that we got is that it improved the executive functional skills, it increased emotional awareness and regulation, it enhanced participation and oral skills, and it reduced conflicts and improved collaboration. As well, we got the support for emotional well-being and academic performance link, the grade level appropriate. So is that it is like it was a good decision to use this population in order to show that it was going to work. The transition support as well was seen, and the individual differences in response. So it's like some show limited progress on emotional outbursts, but like they were a lot of external factors that were influencing at that time, because they had like a lot of issues. Well, some of them had like internal conflicts at home, which was a little bit hard to see as a teacher, but like it's something that we cannot hide from our reality. And now the conclusions. I'm going to give the conclusions according to each question that I mentioned at the beginning. So from the main question is that the techniques like the mood meter and mindfulness helped sixth grade students better manage their emotions and responses in class. Learners use strategies such as breathing and emotional vocabulary on their own, which was showing the real integration. And the intervention foster a more supportive environment where students help each other navigate difficult emotions. Finally, incorporating emotional development into English lessons contributed to both personal growth and improved class dynamics. The second question, which was about the executive function skills, their use in English class helped students improve emotional regulation and self-regulation. So good there. Learners demonstrated self-awareness and the ability to manage uncomfortable feelings. A new approach in the school was shown that it was possible to do, and they like during discussions they were able to name those emotions and to show what strategies they could do. And finally, about English, the same that I mentioned before, they were able to participate more, they were able to address those emotions in English, and they were able to use mood meter and affirmations in order to use their English knowledge. So yeah, this is pretty much this. The action plan is that the yeah, like I would like to have more time in order to study this, because I consider that in the future the impact can be way stronger than just at the beginning if we continue implementing this during the class. We can apply this as well for different subjects, and we can adopt an interdisciplinary approach in order to do this, as well as focus on holistic student development and prioritize emotional well-being in education policy. These are the references. And yeah, this was pretty much my research project for you today, related to emotional intelligence and to yeah, like the whole research.
Thank you
So
very
thank you very
much.
much.
Thank you very much, Maria Fernanda, for sharing your research with us. Your presentation has offered us much to reflect on, and I'm sure it will spark productive discussions. Now, we would now like to open the floor for questions and comments. Here we have some questions in the chat that I'm going to read to you. So, firstly,
Okay.
we have, were parents included in the process in any way? If so, how was it? If not, how do you think the school can make them part of the implementation of these tools to develop their children's emotional management?
Yes, I that was something that I was discussing, because I wanted to use parents as well, like to do a whole triangulation, like between the classes, home, and like teachers. But it was not possible in that school because they didn't have the time in order to do like a parents meeting. But I consider that if we are able to like make them part of this self-care strategy and this whole journey of learning how to handle emotions, because again, parents as well as like an important mirror for their own children, we are able to make this work way better. But in the school it was not possible to do it, but I think that would be great if we are able to like continue with this research in other schools or in other populations, to be able to have the parents there. It's going to be very, very powerful and very useful.
Thank you. Well, here we have another one. It says, what advice would you give to other EFL teachers who want to begin integrating social emotional learning without formal training in psychology or counseling?
This, I think that it is important to have first of all have interest on the topic, like on social emotional learning, and to be able to see that they are kids, like they still need help knowing how to handling their own emotions, because sometimes we have teachers that are like, I know ese chino tan cansón, but we are like, wait a minute, like take a look to yourself first, and then you can help him to regulate, because maybe there is something wrong that he is not telling you or he is not showing, and you need to be like very aware and looking deeply into what's going on. So even though if you don't know about like psychology or counseling, because I didn't know either, it's just like to have very like a lot of love about this topic, and to want to have like the best environment that you can in your classroom, using yourself first as a role, like a model, and then you can transmit that to your students. That would be my advice.
Thank you. Well, lastly, we have, which specific self-care strategies do you think had the greatest impact on students' oral skills and behavioral changes? And how did you address the gender-related difficulties or challenges in group work during the process of your research?
Okay, so for the first one, I would say that the one that had the more like impact, the greatest impact, on students was the mood meter. And I know, because I think that both were important, like both were complementing. Like mood meter was complementing in the terms that they were able to learn vocabulary that they didn't know, because before that, in fifth grade, they didn't know emotions. So at most they knew what was happy and sad, and that's it. So it was like a complement to the mindfulness, because on mindfulness we work on mantras, so we were speaking a little bit more than just using the vocabulary. So I wouldn't say that one is more important than the other, but I think that they are complementing each other. And the other question was okay, how did you address the gender related difficulties? Oh, it was fun, because they had issues with working together, girls with boys, because usually girls tend to be more like leaderships. I don't know how to explain it, but in that grade, I was looking in it that way. So girls were always like, so we are going to decorate this in this way, and it's going to be this way, and it's going to have this specific drawing. And boys were feeling a little bit like out of participation. So in that case, we had to use like a restorative circle in order to create that feeling of belonging, and that each one's opinion was important in order to came out with a perfect like work. So that's how I face those challenges when I was seeing them in the activities issues.
Well, thank you very much again for sharing with us your research.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, to invite the audience to register the form for the attendance, please, for this second current session. Now, I would like to know if Laura Sanchez or Ingrid Rodriguez and Freddy Cadena are here right now.
Yes.
Good morning.
We are. Morning.
All right. May you share with us your
Yes,
presentation,
we
please?
are.
Sure.
Okay. Well, firstly, thank you very much for being here. It's a pleasure for us to have you here, like sharing with us your research. I'm going to introduce our presenters. Firstly, we have Laura Sanchez. She is an associate instructor at Universidad del Bosque in Bogota, Colombia, with more than 8 years of experience in EFL teaching. She holds a bachelor's degree in bilingual education with an emphasis on English teaching from Universidad del Bosque and a master's degree in education from the same institution. She has participated in the creation of online EFL learning material at the Language Center of Universidad del Bosque. Her research interests include dynamic assessment, teaching and learning methods in English as a foreign language, and ICT for educational purposes. Then we have Ingrid Rodriguez, who holds a bachelor degree in Spanish and English from Universidad Pedagógica Nacional and a master's degree in applied linguistics for English teaching from Francisco José de Caldas District University, and is pursuing a PhD in social studies from Jorge Tadeo Lozano University. She is a core faculty professor at the bachelor's degree in bilingualism from Universidad del Bosque University and leads a research hub called Equilateral Knowledge, which is focused on L2 learning processes and social justice in education. She's interested in teaching methodologies, academic writing, practicum, and internship processes and social justice in education. Finally, we have Freddy Cadena. He is a committed and innovative English language educator with over 15 years of experience in bilingual, IB, and higher education contexts in Colombia. He holds a bachelor's degree in bilingual education with emphasis in English from Universidad del Bosque, a master's degree in English language teaching in autonomous environments from Universidad de La Sabana, and an ISO certification award with merit from Cambridge. Freddy currently serves as a teaching professional at Universidad del Bosque, where he designs and implements virtual learning objects and leads initiatives related to curriculum development, digital pedagogy, and teacher training. His academic interests focus on autonomous learning, digital resources for English teaching, and the development of oral fluency. They are going to present us their research titled Teachers and Undergraduate Students' Perceptions on Intensive Synchronous Online English Courses. So, be welcome now again.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for us to be here with you.
Thank you very much for such an introduction. Okay, so without giving more time to this, let's begin. So good morning and thank you all for joining us. Today, we'd like to introduce our research on teachers and undergraduate students' perceptions on intensive synchronous online English courses, effect on oral communication. This research was conducted by Professor Lara, Professor Ingrid Rodriguez, and who's speaking. Let's begin with the following section. For this presentation, we have an agenda. So first, we have an introduction. Second, theoretical framework. Third, state of the art. Fourth, methodology. Fifth, data analysis and findings. Sixth, conclusions and pedagogical implications. Seventh, references.
Thank you.
So let's begin with the introduction.
All right. So as for our introduction, we first we have to say we know students at the university, in general universities, must demonstrate proficiency in L2. In this case, very common for them to demonstrate proficiency in the English as a foreign language. In order to get graduated, they have to demonstrate a B1 or B2 level according to the Common European Framework. The participants of this study specifically have the possibility to choose these English foreign language courses from the university language courses. The courses that they are offered are face-to-face or blended and synchronous classes. So they choose them according to their needs. There are different challenges that students must face when working on online classes. Then we want to emphasize one type of these classes, which are the intensive online courses that have a length of 22 days, 4 hours a day, a day after the other. We know, we are convinced that students are developing all skills during those lessons. However, we know that there may be the possibility for speaking skills to be negatively affected due to, the lack of frequent interaction with their partners. Okay. For the estimate of the problem, then, we established that in intensive synchronous online EFL courses, limited time and interaction can hinder the development of learners' oral skills. Although technology offers, tools to enhance and support and enhance communication, it is still like the need to assess the learner's current oral skills development to better understand how to support them, strengthen them, these skills in the settings. Our research question then is, what are teachers and students' perceptions about the effect of intense and synchronous online EFL courses on the students' oral communication skills development? Our objectives are general and specific. The first one is the general, to explore teachers and students' perceptions about the effect of intensive synchronous online EFL courses on students' oral communication skills specifically, the development of these skills. The specific goals, the first one is to identify how teachers and students perceive the influence of intensive synchronous online EFL courses on the learners' opportunities to engage in oral interaction. Second, to examine the perceptions of the effectiveness of these courses in developing students' oral communication skills. And the third one, to explore the strategies and resources that are used to encourage oral interaction. For the rationale, this study can offer valuable insights for teachers and institutions to improve the design of these intensive online courses. They can also use our information to align these courses more with the students' oral interaction needs and learning preferences. Also, we want to support the development of more effective programs, right, in line with the educational goals, national educational goals and digital inclusion. And of course, we want to contribute to the global discussion on best practices for online oral communication in ENFL courses contexts. We have three theoretical constructs. The first one is online learning environments, interaction, and development of oral skills in English. For the online learning environments, we have Lewithan et al. And Richardson et al. They allow us to have a description of how these environments are developed. We have clear now that synchronous learning refers to an environment in which teachers and students interact, being connected at the same time, and they participate, developing tasks. When working on asynchronous learning is different because teachers and learners can go forward independently at their own pace without the need of real-time presence. The instructor can be there, but also sometimes he can be absent. Blended learning then, is the one in which synchronous and asynchronous activities are combined, allowing learners to be guided by teachers, but also working independently. For interaction then, it is defined as the relationship human beings build one with another. These interpersonal interactions can support, teaching, learning, understanding processes, conversation, dissent, agreement, permission, criticism, and the ongoing process of negotiating identity. So basically, this interaction is going to support collaborative work and how we build our identities. Development of oral skills in English. We know that speaking involves expression of thoughts through voice, pronunciation, intonation, along with rich vocabulary and appropriate grammar. That's like the basic description, but also we know that in order to achieve fluency and to be effective, for instance, having a conversation, learners need to participate in communication and interactions in class. So it is key for students to develop strong communication skills. Well, for state of art, we have Kujasta, Hero, O'Kire, and Azrati, Hero. The first one states, the first group of researchers state that online courses can offer comparable quality to traditional classes, face-to-face classes. But they emphasize also the flexibility and engagement that online environments can provide. Okay, highlights students' mixed perceptions. Some of them consider the benefits especially for introverted students, but some others express their dissatisfaction because of the limited interaction and the experiences of anxiety that this can produce. As for Asrati et al., they found that the students improved their English speaking skills by using ICT supported speaking tools. So with these tools, they are able to improve fluency, pronunciation, grammar, and vocabulary. For our methodology then, we want to share the context is a private university in the north of Bogota. The participants are EFL intensive courses students, which are from level A1 to B2 from different academic programs. They study at the language center, and the other group of participants are their teachers. This is a qualitative case study that follows the interpretive paradigm. The instruments that we use were questionnaires, interviews, and class observations, always online. And the methodology to analyze data was the thematic analysis, and we developed open, actionable, and selective coding. Okay, so regarding to our research question, that is, what are teachers and students' perceptions about the effect that synchronous intensive online EFL courses have on the students' oral communication? We found out 3 different categories. The first one is opportunities and challenges for oral communication in intensive EFL courses. The second is perception on the oral communication skills development. And the last one, strategies and resources to promote oral communication, which is divided into pedagogical strategies and technological and interactive resources. So let's talk about the first one, opportunities and challenges for oral communication in intensive EFL courses. So first, when students are exposed daily to the language, they can improve their confidence to a repeated practice. Second, this type of courses can help those students who are shy or introverted because they feel in a safe place from a physical classroom. Talking about resources, students take advantage of different tools like recordings, reading aloud, videos, among others, to continue practicing outside of the classroom. Also, working on vocabulary every day helps students to remember easily, stay engaged, and keep an active participation during the activities of every single class. Motivation is another important fact because they help. When the students are interested in the lesson, they are more active to participate, which allows them to develop their communicative skills. Moreover, is an important fact that we have to consider is feedback, because when students are aware of those weaknesses and strengths, they can improve during the process. So through these courses, it is possible to evidence improvements in how students start the course and how they finish it. However, there are some challenges that we have to face and we have to try to improve during the learning and teaching process of these intensive courses. One of them is how to address students' different learning phases due to the prior knowledge and individual confidence. Second, depending on the methodology and class management, classes can be teacher-centered, which reduces individual oral production. Also, the internet connection is one of the most common challenges because some students are in different locations where the connection is not the best. As well, the lack of full body language, eye contact, doesn't allow the teacher to notice the students' understanding. So it is really, really challenging because it's difficult to get what are the questions or the doubts if they don't express them. Plus, the intensity of the course can be hard for some students due to the daily schedule. They work during the whole day and they study at night. So after some hours of class, they are really tired. So it's difficult to have them engaged during the whole lesson. It is necessary that students continue practicing out of the class to reinforce what they have studied during each lesson. Because sometimes, according to the schedule of the class or the planning, it's difficult to have every single class peer-to-peer conversations or spontaneous conversations. In addition, there are students who are always participate and use the language, while others remain silent. So this is because there are some students who are more participative, dominated the oral activities space and leaving their classmates without a chance to participate. Finally, teachers' methodologies are crucial in this process because it is necessary to adapt them to virtual environments. Our second category is related to the perceptions on the oral skills development. Here, we could observe three different levels of development. The first one is high development, because we have students who reported improvements in terms of pronunciation, fluency, and confidence, thanks to feedback, meaningful resources, and interactive methods. The second one is moderate development, because in this case, we had some students who said they improved, but they still have difficulties with vocabulary, spontaneous speaking, and confidence despite being in a supporting environment. Finally, we have low development due to a few students who expressed they had limited progress because of anxiety, internet connection, and daily schedules.
Okay. Now, thank you very much, professors Laura and Ingrid. I think it is my time to move on to the third category. So, after having a clear picture of the two previous categories, we now turn to the last one. Yes. And this one is the strategies and resources to promote oral communication. Yeah. Over here, we have, as it was mentioned before, yeah, this was subdivided in subsequent subcategories, yeah, which are pedagogical strategies and technological and interactive resources. These two emerge from our aforementioned third main category. Yeah. So to begin with pedagogical strategies, it was found that several teaching methods help students feel more comfortable and willing to speak during their classes. Yeah. For instance, while using breakout rooms, the levels of anxiety were reduced considerably. Yeah. This happened as the breakout rooms were created to reduce the number of students, yes, in each one of the rooms. All right. So this had a consequence, and it started to impact the anxiety of students. Yes. During these breakout rooms, teachers proposed role plays, yes, and role plays through guided prompts that offer structure and relevance, yes, while giving feedback and peer feedback. The teacher scaffolding of this process build confidence and motivation, leading then students to a real play, yeah, which means that situations were drawn from participants' own life and work. These elements played a pivotal role in reducing anxiety and encouraging spontaneous speaking among students. So, to sum up, it is key to maintain the focus of the class following a student-centered approach and scaffolding activities proposed by teachers. Over here, we have the excerpt that can easily show us a little bit of it. So let's move on to the next slide. That we have technology. Yeah. So in addition to pedagogy, technology helped in a great extent to reach successful speaking opportunities through interactive and flexible formats. Platforms such as Flipgrid, Padlet, Zoom, among others, Edpuzzle, Wordwall, some of the activities or some of the tools that we teachers use during these classes, online classes, were part of or were trying to tackle the lack of oral communication present among students. Yeah. So having said that, yeah, recorded speaking tasks also took a very important place during this practice. Why is that? Because students were somehow motivated to to use some self-monitor strategies, yes, that can help them while doing the activities. For example, when they were recording, they were asked to watch what they recorded, and after that, they look for opportunities for further improvement. And if they found some of them, they had the chance to record again the process so that they have a very good final project to present in class. Yes, this, of course, impact directly to the effective filters of the students. Yeah. So to sum up over here, therefore, we have an evident improvement on oral skills that was a result of structured task and reflective practices, even in a digital space that sometimes it is quite difficult to allow these spaces to reach success in these kind of activities. Yes, were key to building oral fluency. So all in all, we have the conclusions over here. So let's begin with what we have over here. Although oral is essential, both teachers and students noted that spontaneous speaking was limited by different factors. What kind of factors? Time constraints of intensive courses. I think that Professor Lara mentioned that before. Fatigue due to the different responsibilities that they have to deal with. Language of academic and personal responsibilities. Yes, because as it was mentioned before, they not only had to probably face work responsibilities, but also academic ones. However, when interactions were guided and well structured, students had or reported, yes, feeling more confident, willing and able to. Yeah. So this is part of the thing that we need to probably highlight over here, how well structured and guided activities are key. Having said that, on the following slide, yes, we have that participants also emphasized that while digital tools supported participation, they couldn't fully replace the richness of in-person interaction. Yeah, so this is one of the opportunities for further improvement that we found over here. One of the suggestions found over there was that the need for more structured interaction. Yeah, where students had the chance to know what to expect. Yes, had preparation to, well, had time to prepare what they were to do. Yeah, and also could reflect on their performance. These findings point out the value of scaffolding, pacing, and consistency in teaching methods and didactic sequences. So now, having said that, we have some pedagogical implications that we find right here in this last slide. So, from these findings, several implications arise. First, shifting away from teacher-centered approaches is key. Yes, it is because it gives the students more responsibility for their own speaking. But for this to become a successful practice, there are many things that we have to do. Yes, interaction must be structured and planned, guided and a scaffold. Second, teachers are called to build safe spaces to speak, yeah, where students can express themselves within the frames of role plays, real plays, debates, guided discussions, and some other activities. Likewise, personalized feedback allows to reflect on different areas for further improvement, such as accuracy and fluency. So this section over here is crucial for the teacher. Yeah, so I think that sometimes we are moving from accuracy to fluency, checking on students, and this happens to all teachers. Well, all things considered, a combination of a structured task, a reflective practice, and a reflective practice helps students build confidence and communicate freely and clearly so that they can build and create a very good communicative competence. Okay, so I think that this is it. Now we have here a couple of references, and we're, of course, looking forward to hearing your questions.
Thank you, dear professors, for that enlightening and well-articulated presentation. We now open the floor to questions and discussions. So we encourage all the audience to share your thoughts or inquiries through the chat, or if you want to open the microphone, it's time to do so. So while the audience is writing maybe any question, here I have a question. So how do you envision adapting the intensive course structure to better support sustained oral development for students who struggle with speaking anxiety and fast-paced instruction? I'm going to hear the question in the chat.
Well, of course, it is a very interesting question because we know that every group has different experiences, different levels of skills and stuff. However, we are convinced that by having structured, let's say, interaction, providing scaffolding, and providing space for them to really prepare, and using tools, but also promoting having this human touch that sometimes is not evident when working online, they are going to feel better. They are going to develop their communicative skills better. So how do we develop these human skills, let's say, or having this human experience? It depends everything on how is it that we deal with the class, how we help them, how we establish like a bridge between one student and the other to feel comfortable talking with one another, and it deals also with the fact that they need to be well prepared, so we need commitment from them, also starting investing time outside the class. So they have to be like a good, let's say, suggestions that we are supposed to provide at the very beginning of each type of this type of course, at the very beginning of the course.
Thank you. And here we have another question that says, you mentioned that some students benefit from recorded tasks and asynchronous tools. How might hybrid models better combine this with live interaction to enhance oral proficiency?
That's a very good question as well. I think that everything depends on the student's needs. Yes. And from this point, we can start building these asynchronous activities that probably they can develop at their own pace and at their own time. Yes. And of course, providing feedback during online sessions. All right. So probably that might tackle the need to improve their oral proficiency, yeah, while they are learning. Yes, so this might be one way how to handle this, how to manage the situation over here with this variation that we might have in hybrid environments.
Well, thank you very much. Okay.
So sorry.
No worries.
Besides, one of the, I think that current tool that we can use in our classes is the intelligence, artificial intelligence, because one of the tools that we have used previously is speech recognition software. So where we can assign students to practice outside of the classroom so they can mix what they have learned before, using their phones, using their devices to improve these communicative skills.
Well, thank you very much again for sharing with us this amazing research. Well, now as a reminder for our audience, remember that we will have a break from now until 10:45. And then please access to our YouTube channel to join us in our second plenary session. Don't forget to register your attendance and the assessment of this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you very much.